All right, let's get rolling. We are at the top of the hour. Thanks, folks, for joining us today. Joining me is Ernie Martinelli. I am Michael Amadio. We're here representing the team at Excel Micro, talking about some of the latest threats that we've seen. You see a lot of news these days. Heck, every day we're reading more and more about data breaches and new attacks. So we want to review what we've seen in 2017, what we've really learned, and let's talk about what we can do together next year to protect, obviously, you and your downstream customers. So our agenda today, we're going to just dive into a little bit about Excel Micro, and then we're going to cover a few definitions, a few key terms that we will be discussing throughout this presentation just to make sure everybody's aware of what these key terms mean. We'll talk about some of those recent breaches and what we could have done to stop them, to prevent them, and to really make us be those proactive security agents out there. We'll talk about, again, what we see coming and the vulnerabilities and how we can protect our customers and prepare for 2018. And as mentioned, we will have a grand prize at the end of this where we'll spin our little wheel here, and one lucky registrant will be a winner of a $50 gift card. Q&A throughout will be within the actual chat window. Just a little housekeeping for that with Q&A. Feel free to post a question there anytime throughout the presentation. Our team's standing by to answer questions throughout. If your question does go unanswered, we'll see if we can read it aloud towards the end of the presentation, or just have one of our account managers reach out to you, have more of a one-on-one conversation for that. As mentioned, this is going to be recorded. Look for a recording from us once it gets produced within the next couple of days, so you can feel free to revisit this or share this with your team. So Excel Micro, we're part of J2 Global. We've been part of J2 Global now a little bit over 3 years. October of 2014 is when we were acquired by J2. J2 is a fantastic organization to be part of. They are a publicly traded company. They have two divisions, their Cloud Services Division and their Digital Media. Well, Excel Micro, we fall below the Cloud Services Division. And since being acquired, they've done nothing but invest heavily in what Excel Micro's stance is as a value-add distributor and what we really want to do to bring that human touch and bring everything together again under that value-add type distribution model Excel Micro has. So Excel Micro, as mentioned, yes, we are part of J2, but we've been around for, heck, over 25 years now, and we've been in this security space, primarily cloud security, for 18 years. Excel Micro, we focus primarily on email security as well as some endpoint and web protection. We really did not want to be a big box type of distributor where you are able to order a monitor, a mouse, and a few licenses of security software. That's not what we represent. We wanted to make sure that we provided you with that true value add. We had teams here on site for every avenue that you need, from technical support to product development to product marketing down to your dedicated account managers. And we really want to, again, bring that human element and it back into place with distribution. We have our centers of excellence here in place, which we're constantly trying to improve upon. You may have actually seen surveys from us recently because we want to understand what you need. We need to understand how we are doing and we can improve upon for that. Really, it's having that core focus is going to do nothing but benefit you and your customers because you're going to have a team that's dedicated to our craft. Our partners, these are the brands that we proudly represent. As you can see, primarily all of them are revolving around email. We do have some specialties in there with WebRoot, some DNS protection and endpoint protection, as well as McAfee for endpoint. We also do some work pretty heavily with Google. We were Postini's largest distributor years ago, if you remember the old Postini email security product. And then we became one of Google's first ever Google Apps, or what it was called Google Apps for Work at the time, and then became Google Apps for Business as they constantly changed the name of it. We were one of their first 5 providers, so we were able to constantly grow on that business as well. But as you can see, all the solutions here are your premium solutions, the industry-leading solutions in your cloud security and compliance space. As mentioned, a few definitions. These are some terms that are going to come up as we go through the rest of the presentation. Ransomware. Now, we hear this all over the place now. And what's really amazing is you're going to see a stat. People don't even know what ransomware is. It's a very scary term. You know, oh, ransomware. Well, what is that? Well, honestly, when someone infiltrates your network or your system, they are going to lock that out. And you're not going to be unable to access your data or really anything within that network until some money is paid. Now that could be thousands of dollars, it could be millions of dollars, it could be within Bitcoin. It could get you down a huge rabbit hole that you don't want to go. With small protections that you can put in place, which we're going to highlight to be proactive, you're going to be protected against that ransomware. And really, what's a key path to get that ransomware into a network? Phishing. Now you see the term phishing a lot these days, or spear phishing, or business email compromise. Phishing as a general term, it's just basically the way that they can infiltrate you through your email by providing an email address that looks legit, an email address that has a friendly from that would be something very familiar to you, Bank of America, Microsoft, Google even. Malware is another way that you can infect your network, and that can be done through email or even through a browser. So that's just a malicious software that's going to also damage or lock down your computers, require you to get some sort of payment to whoever that person is, or go through, again, a long rabbit hole just to get all of that cleared out of your network. So let's talk about some of these past breaches and what we could have done. You see here Home Depot, Target, and the DNC. Now that's primarily what you're going to see on the news are these big logos that everybody knows. I'm in Home Depot every weekend. My wife's in Target every weekend. Obviously, everything going on politically, you see the DNC. But that's not the main target. Now, joining me today, as some of you may know, is our product manager, Ernie Martinelli. Ernie, what can you talk about some data breaches and who our main target is these days?
Absolutely. Main target nowadays is actually the smaller businesses. In a few minutes, I'm going to kind of go over here with you, how the Home Depot and the Target and the DNC breaches took place. But these companies have kind of wised up now after Home Depot and Target lost millions of dollars in revenue from these breaches. Now these hackers are actually going after the smaller people, the 5, 10, 15 user companies, where they can actually breach into these networks. And if they can get $5,000, $10,000 from a data breach or a phishing attempt, they're obviously going to go for that. They're much better targets nowadays, forgive the pun, but they're much better targets. To also go into what happened with the Home Depot and Target and the DNC, these were emails that went out. They had a embedded URL within the contents. They went out within the Home Depot, Target, and DNC hierarchies. They went through the email system. They showed up in there. 4 or 5 days later, a hacker weaponized those URLs. A click happy end user came along, clicked on it. In the Home Depot and Target situations, that malware opened up, went into the POS terminals of each of those companies, and started downloading credit card and PIN information and sending that out.
Scary, and it is targeted now towards those mom and pop type shops because they are the ones that are extremely vulnerable. They don't know about the additional threats or what they can really do to improve on their security, and that's why it's our job and our partners' jobs that we educate ourselves more and more each day to see what we can do to attack these breaches. And here's just some of them that we see in the news. Obviously, WannaCry, Locky, all the way down to Jigsaw. And this is just what we've seen in 2017. Now we're only halfway through November. And what season's coming up? What is next week kicking off? Thanksgiving, the holiday season, a lot of shopping, a lot of point-of-purchase sales, a lot of online shopping, a lot of cryptic emails that are coming through. The whole POS machines that people can sit there and they can get your information extremely easy. So, and the day after Thanksgiving, as all of us know, is the largest shopping day of the year. Something as easy as beefing up your security over the next few days for your customers is going to be protecting them tenfold. So we see those attacks. We understand that yes, they can be prevented. Ernie, you mentioned SMB is the way to go. That where if you want to have an attack, look at the statistic or the quote right there on the screen. Only 1/3 of U.S. office workers know what ransomware actually is. That's scary. So what could you do, Ernie, to prevent these attacks?
Absolutely. So referencing back to what we were just discussing a few moments ago with the Home Depot and the Target, they obviously were running just strict Office 365, no layered security approach. That's how the breach was able to take place without the additional layer of security. So obviously the recommended methodology now is absolutely use the Google Apps, use Office 365, but the idea is to layer that technology on top, your email security on top of that with additional threat protections such as the ClickSmart, the URL defense to lay right on top of that.
Awesome. Education as well. We really need to highlight the education piece for these folks. They need to understand that everyone is extremely click happy, and you're going to get emails that will be a compromised email. So some of the vulnerabilities that we do see out there, we've been highlighting these with them. You know, obviously spam and virus filtering is a staple solution. Your business needs to stay afloat. You need to be communicating with the outside world. The two ways of communicating, through phone and through email. Who wants to deal with spam and viruses all day? So we need to have that protection in place. However, that is not the main threat or is through spam these days. They're coming through email, but it's coming through a new type of attack, through a phishing attack. This next generation, more sophistication. Ernie, what can you talk about how these hackers are now starting to get through?
So obviously, we've been speaking about how those URLs have been embedded into the emails, whether they're text or HTML. Most email security solutions, obviously, nowadays, they'll scan it on the way by. They'll check it for reputation. However, what the new sophisticated way to do it is, of course, they put these through. They're perfectly fine. These links are going to good reputation sites. They may have been around for a while. They may be fresh set up. They're not going anywhere. What a favorite thing of hackers to do, of course, is 4 or 5 days later, they'll come back and what's called weaponize that link. Now they've attached it to go to a malicious website, have a payload associated with it that would download content upon the click time action. Well, most normal email security solutions, it's already been past the filter. Somebody clicks on it. Obviously, that payload or that malware is now going to be downloaded and installed into the machine. Having a solution that does URL defense, what's going to happen in that situation, it's going to rewrite that URL on the way by. Upon each click time action, it is verified at that time frame whether that's a good link or that's a bad link. If it's been weaponized 4 or 5 days later, they're going to click on it. It's going to say this link is malicious, not going to allow that to occur. And that's actually in there for the lifetime of the email security product. It's always going to be rewritten going back through the security product.
So the email security solutions they're doing their job now without this additional layer of security because they're receiving an email, they're scoring it, it's going through their back channels, their global threat intelligence, what they have to present to protect you from spam and viruses, and they're just seeing general characters in an email, correct?
Correct.
So they come through, filtered for spam, filtered for viruses. Again, we'll use next week as an example. And folks are away for 5 days. They come back, they open their email on a Monday morning, and that hacker has, as you call it, weaponized the link. So we go in and we see a legit email came through our filter. We think everything's working fine. Click, and there we are. We're now infected. Okay. Let's take a look at one of those emails. So here's just an example of a phishing email. This is an example of someone who would receive something that looks extremely legit from support@auditgoogle.com. If you're quickly looking at the friendly from name on that, you just see Google Accounts Team. Are you really going to take that extra step to say, well, let me see what this actual email address is if I just show a friendly Google Accounts Team, and I'm looking at the body of this saying, oh, I need to update my Google account. Let me just go through the process now. I mean, great example. Take a look at this here on our screen. And we're going to shoot you over a poll on this one. Can you actually spot the difference between the top example or the bottom example? There is a difference. I promise you, there is a difference. And you're going to get a poll that gets shot out to you, and that poll is going to give you a chance to answer that top or the bottom. Take a few seconds and feel free to put your answer in there. I can tell you right now, Ernie and I have combined how many years in this, Ernie?
We have 16 years of combined experience in the industry, and I can tell you we've looked at situations like this and many other situations. It's still hard for us to detect sometimes. Just goes to show how important it is to have that additional layer of security.
All right, let's close out that poll here and let you guys know if anyone picked the top example, you are correct. The bottom example is incorrect. Let's go back up a slide just to kind of show you with this real quickly. Now, both of these are the exact same font. It's an Arial font. And the thing about this, when it's minimized, it's extremely small in an Outlook or a Google Apps or a 365 client, whatever you're using. There's a slight difference. The top Google is spelled correctly with a lowercase l. The bottom Google is spelled incorrectly. That has an I in it, a capital I. Now, you still look at that, it almost looks identical, but there's a slight space difference between the G and the L and the G and the I. That's how quick, that's how easy someone can get your network infiltrated. It's extremely dangerous, so if you don't have something as an additional layer of protection for your customers. Someone who's extremely click happy could impact the network that fast. So congrats on everybody that was able to pick the top one. It's basically, let me flip a coin on that. That's how hard it is. All right, so protection for you and your clients. So what can we do? What ways can we protect ourselves, Ernie, from these more sophisticated threats?
Well, obviously our recommendation nowadays is obviously have your strong email security solution, but upgrade to that URL defense. Get that in there for your customers. It's a simple and easy thing to add on top. It's going to add that additional layer of scanning. It's going to protect against those phishing attempts. It's going to rewrite those URLs so you don't have to worry about that. That takes that human element we've been talking about out of the picture.
Perfect. So best practices, a lot of this we've been discussing the whole time, but it is adding that additional layer of security. And one thing that we will tend to highlight here a lot of, and you'll hear on some of our other presentations, is education. We want to make sure that people are always aware of the latest threats and what to do to be ahead of that, to be the hero for your customers. We want to make sure that you understand if someone is on something like you were mentioning, Office 365 or Google Apps. I mean, they're flat out saying how vulnerable they are.
Yeah, they're great platforms, but they don't specialize in security, and that's why it makes a lot of sense to have that layered security approach nowadays.
For sure. And we host a lot of educational series throughout the year. In fact, you'll probably see something shortly from our team on what we're going to be doing with archiving and best practices. So as mentioned, special promo, folks that are on the line today, ClickSmart is, we're going to provide that to you free for the remainder of the year. This way it gives you the ability to learn a little bit more about that additional layer of security that you can add on to your FuseMail email security solution. It's going to allow you to learn how to present this, market this, and again, share that knowledge and that education to your downstream customers. So reach out to your account manager, and they'll definitely be able to walk you through what you need for that promotion for the rest of the year. All right, so let's close it out here. Let's see if there's, looks like there hasn't been too many questions. Let me see if we have any that we want to read for the crowd. Great one here. What's the false positive rate, Ernie?
False positive rate in the testing for the ClickSmart product has been less than a half a percentage point. Becomes a big concern that I speak to a lot of partners about. So in our testing, that was one of the big things we focused on. Obviously, we don't want a ton of that going to the quarantine and becoming a problem. So less than a half a percentage point.
Wow, fantastic. Another question is coming through about activating this for customers. How easy can you add this onto an account?
Simple as just adding the package. It's almost instantaneous. Just like adding any of our other additional services into the product, we simply add that package. It's up and running. It's important to note the package will come up in the situation where it's set to warn and allow. We do recommend setting that and ratcheting it down to do the block setting. So this obviously will generate more protection there.
So spinning up's pretty quick. It's pretty easy to do. Folks, there's a couple questions that have come through. It is. You have the ability to whitelist certain domains. You have the ability to brand the solution within FuseMail and have different notifications as well. All right, so our dedicated account managers are here by phone, by email. If you're unsure who your account manager is, just simply reach out to our general number and we'll get you in touch with someone immediately. As mentioned with our value add, we have everything here under one roof. Our account managers can quickly walk over to the provisioning team, get down into support, make sure everything is prepared for your in your account correctly. Look for a recording from us again in the next few days once it produces correctly, and we look forward to working with everyone very soon. Ernie, thank you. Great job as always.
Thanks.